Hey everybody, as promised, here is the midnight showing. Um, it's not technically midnight, it's actually about 11:30 right now, um, here in our room. So, yeah, I don't have class tomorrow until 10:10. I have Western Civ, 2. Creative writing is canceled for tomorrow, due to my teacher's medical condition again. He needs to have some more procedures done. So we won't be having class until next Tuesday for creative writing. But yeah, I figured since I don't have class until later tomorrow, I'm not going to bed just yet. So, what am I doing at this hour in my room? Making videos. I was on webcam earlier with my friend Andy, and I was also talking to him right now on AIM. Oh, writing and revisions. I actually have that opened right now. I am currently working on, I believe, chapter 8, and I was thinking, well, since this is a midnight showing and you all probably are expecting some sort of nighttime fun, I figured I should read you an excerpt from the books, possibly revisions. So, yeah, let me go through and see what I've got. So, give me 1 second. Um, hmm. Here we go. Perfect way, especially for at night. And, let's hope that, we don't get any nightmares over here, in our room. That would not be too fun. Ending up staying up the entire night when we were supposed to be sleeping. Everybody else is already sleeping, so I think I'm the only one up still. Okay, so here we go. This is an excerpt from chapter 7 of The Island of Redemption. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. And I'm only going to read about a page. The page as in typed. Printed edition, it's going to be longer. But anyway, here we go. Shadows swept across the cabin which Tara had been assigned, dousing the walls in a dark navy blue. Although time had slipped into the early hours of night, the young girl could hardly find herself any rest. She lay awake, staring dreadfully at the ever-darkening ceiling, hoping that soon it would carry her to sleep. Her mind had still been wrapped around the warnings Yuki had mentioned earlier that evening. It was certain they were a factor in her lack of sleep. As she rolled onto her side, fluffing her pillow, she stared out of her porthole nervously. The wind picked up every few moments, howling like hell-sent hounds against the glass, creating a small creaking sound. Satara shuddered, imagining the creature which Yuki had described appearing at her window, scratching to enter the sanctity of her cabin. Finally turning away from the window, she sighed uneasily, hoping to change her thoughts to something more peaceful. She thought of her mother, the one who was probably worried sick about her disappearance, her sister, and her father. She thought of the memories she had made with her grandmother over the years, the thought of her amulet and the furry little creature who had taken it. Satara could still envision his twitching whiskers, his cunning grin, and his piercing yellow-green eyes. Soon she was drifting off to sleep. Nevertheless, she was soon reawakened. The sound of scratching against the window returned, and even though Satara knew it was most likely the wind again, she still grew frightened. Gripping her pillow tightly, she refused to glance over to the porthole. If it truly had been one of the sea witches Yuki had described to her earlier that night, she figured that she would much rather not have to look at it. Nevertheless, her eyes remained focused on the wall across the room. she soon noticing the silhouette of what appeared to be a creature slip across the boards. Holding her breath, she tightly closed her eyes as she tugged the blanket securely to her face, attempting to shake the image of shadows from her head. Perhaps it was a trick of the mind, she thought as her eyes clutched the darkness. After all, she had been overly exhausted. Giving in, she gradually reopened her eyes, the shadows on the wall now gone, only the darkness around her once more. Sitara breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that although she would still not be able to get a full night's rest, at least she was safe. It was all in her head. Grunting somewhat, she readjusted herself comfortably, murmuring under her breath, "That horrid Yuki," she grumbled, "telling me these tales in an attempt to keep me awake." Not long after she had spoken, Sitara could have sworn she heard soft whispering. She wasn't sure if it had been coming from inside her room or outside her porthole, but either way it caught her attention. Sitting up, she removed the sheet which had been wrapped around her, placing her bare feet onto the wooden floorboards. They were cold to the touch, but Sitara didn't mind. Snatching up her still dampened shoes, she wasted no time in pulling them on, creeping out of her cabin silently. The hallway was pitch black, lanterns having been burned out for hours now. It took a moment for Sitara's eyes to adjust to the darkness, but once the feeble silver light of the moon shone through the portholes, she was finally able to make out where she was going. Already she could sense that night had become cooler as she approached the end of the hall. The wind must have seeped in through the splints in the ship. Sulking past the doorway to Yuki's cabin, which had been slightly parted, Sitara bit down on her lip nervously, hoping that he hadn't heard her. Just to be certain, she peered through the crevice of the door had created, spotting the young man in his hammock, back turned to her, yet rising and falling steadily as if he had been deep in slumber. Breathing a sigh of relief, Sitara moved away from the doorway in case Yuki happened to awaken, heading for the stairwell. She managed to gather one of the lanterns on her way to the main deck, lighting it as the illumination pulsated. She had to squint once the light radiated from behind the glass exterior, venturing down the ramp and onto the sandy shores. From what she could see, an uncanny fog carried out across the shoreline, the howls from the wind through the trees causing her to tremble. Suddenly, Yuki's assumption of the shores being haunted was beginning to seem of truth. It took her a moment to see where she was going, the light from the lantern returning back into her eyes from the thick fog. To her left she could hear the waves rolling across the shoreline, and to the right the whistling of the wind. Eagerly gripping the handle of the lantern, Sitara tread through the now cooled sands towards the forest. Although the fog appeared to have subsided the closer she managed to get to the woodland, she still found it difficult to see beyond the thick copse of trees. Yuki's words began to return to her again, both of the island and the forest. She cringed at the thoughts of heading into haunted grounds, most likely where the dreadful sea witches he had spoke of would be lurking. Nevertheless, she finally gained the courage she needed, after insisting on telling herself that the creatures would more than likely find the shoreline to be suitable for their activities. Gripping the lantern tighter, she swallowed hard, managing to brush all thoughts of the spoken horrors from her mind. Then she slipped silently into the dark forest. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to read to you for now. An excerpt from Chapter 7 of The Island of Redemption, which will be coming out soon, give or take 3 months, from Scarlet River Press. In the meantime, I'm going back to writing. It is very dark in this room, and I have a little friend, as you saw as I was trying to read, yeah, come over and interrupt me. So, good night, everybody. Hope you have a great night's rest and a great day tomorrow. I am not looking forward to my Western Civ class, but Andy and I will be making a video together. I will be trying to get that on my account. And then we maybe go take some pictures on an abandoned train, which is going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, can't wait. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Night.